Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, another movie review, another weekend at the movie theaters. This film in particular that I'm going to be talking about today is entitled Return to Seoul. I think back in December, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a trailer for this movie. And for whatever reason, it spoke to me. And I said to myself, whenever this film releases, I am going to watch it. I waited all of January, didn't read anything about it necessarily, and didn't see any showings in New York. And then February came, and it was only showing at the Angelica Film Center and Cafe, and I was ever able to make it down there to watch it at that theater. Eventually, it came to the Alamo Drafthouse. I'm a season pass holder, took advantage when it came to the Alamo. So last Friday morning, which was March 3rd, I decided to go and watch it at my local Alamo Drafthouse. Now, a small tidbit about me going to the Alamo to watch this particular movie. So it was an early morning showing, so there wasn't that many people in the theater. Literally, I think there was like 4 of us, right? And when I chose my seat the prior week, I always like to choose the aisle seat or whatever, nearest to a column in this specific theater, right? So I was like, okay, there's no one else sitting in the row. I chose the corner seat, and the rest of the theater was available, right? I get to the theater. I enter the theater, whatever the case is. There's a dude literally sitting right next to me. Now, nowadays, folks, outside of the Alamo Drafthouse, at Regals, at AMC's, you can see when people have reserved seats, when seats have already been taken. If this might be a pet peeve of mine, I might just be overreacting, but what in the blue freaking hell makes you want to choose the seat directly next to mine? The rest of the row is empty. There's 3 other rows in front of us that are empty, and you choose a seat right next to mine? What in the fuck? Anyways, folks, that's the human condition talking. You know, people can sit anywhere they want. But the reality of the situation is, if you understand that the rest of the freaking theater is open or free for you to grab a seat, you're going to grab a seat right next to someone else when you could have room next to you left or right? When I chose my seat, there was nobody sitting next to me. Like, come on now. Anyways, I don't know. It is what it is. That's that. On to the film. Return to Seoul. According to the information that I found, it was released in theaters, a limited release on December 2nd, 2022. The distributor is Sony Pictures Classics for this film. This film is both French and Korean. So we have 2 specific cultural tendencies, specificities that people from the U.S. aren't necessarily used to. From a artistic standpoint, how expression might be interpreted, things of that nature. I went into this film very open-minded. I was just intrigued by the trailer. The synopsis reads as follows. On an impulse to reconnect with her origins, Freddie, who is 25 years old, returns to South Korea for the first time, where she was born before being adopted and raised in France. The headstrong young woman starts looking for her biological parents in a country she knows so little about. taking her life in new and unexpected directions. Sure. Yeah. That was in the movie. I would say. The young lady who played the role of Freddie, Jamin Park. No, was it? Yeah, Jamin Park. She was amazing in this role. But what got me the most about this was, and it was something that I told a friend of mine after I came out of the theater and from watching the movie. The movie wasn't bad. The movie wasn't great. The movie wasn't even mid. It's just one of those movies that, yeah, I was intrigued by it. And I found it interesting. The story was easy enough to follow. But I feel like there were certain moments in the film that dragged too long. And then at the same time, there were like random lines of dialogue that were so out of place that it made me think and feel like there was something wrong with the leading character, the protagonist / antagonist, because she played both roles really. So as the synopsis said, she was trying to reconnect with her origins. It seemed that ever since the Korean War, there was a boom of Korean babies being put up for adoption, either just within Korea itself, and then being transported to other countries. In Freddie's case here, she was transported to France. There was a specific adoption agency, the Hammond Adoption Agency, in this film, which had her records and things of that nature. They have different headquarters in different countries, and she was able to trace back her past and her file and find out where her parents were. There was this whole thing about just her trying to find her identity. So the movie takes place during an 8-year period. It begins in 2013 and it goes all the way up to 2021. There were some time jumps in the story. We begin in 2013. She's young at this point in time. 25, I guess, is the age you want to say it. She's still trying to find herself as a person. She goes to Korea on a whim, and she makes quick friends and relationships with the people that she stayed at a hotel / Airbnb type place in when she first got to Korea, trying to find her parents. She eventually found her father first. Her mother never answered the inquiries in the first 2-year period. When we meet her, she seems like she's a very free-spirited girl. Like I said, still trying to find herself and her identity. Free-spirited, carefree, sexually fluid. You know, she likes both men and women. But what I noticed about her, at least at the beginning, the first 2 years, and even in the middle, after the 5-year jump, during the 5-year jump, she had a very negative or tumultuous relationship with men in general, even though she was raised by French parents, both mother and father. But she had tumultuous relationships with men, treated them like complete garbage. They were a tool to her. And that was, in essence, I figured that was part of the story, right? That was part of what made her who she was. But at the end of the day, she, like I said, she treated men like crap, including her biological Korean father. Because it seemed to her, at least from a cynical point of view, that Korean men were overly sensitive. Like there was one part in the first 2-year block where she had relations with this young Korean guy or whatever the case is, and she purposely hurt his feelings by mistreating him verbally and eventually telling him that she told him that she had a French boyfriend, that she didn't want anything to do with him anymore, and just treating him like crap, right? And then the same thing, she found that not the same thing, but in similar fashion, she mistreated her biological father because her biological father lived with so much regret for the reason of putting her up for adoption and things of that nature. And they were very, at least the way that it was perceived in this film, Korean men were very in touch with their feelings and their emotions, and she wasn't about that. She made fun of it, and she thought it was, for lack of a better term, very lowbrow. So she took advantage of it, and she just mistreated the men who she thought fell in line with that, being in touch with their emotional side type thing. She didn't want to receive text messages from her father at first, and didn't want to hear him basically express his feelings about the whole situation and stuff like that. And then the women in his family as well had these deep emotional connections to the situation, and them expressing themselves about how regretful but yet thankful they were to be able to meet her and things of that nature. And she just was not responsive to that at all. And some people would say, well, rightfully so. These people are they're jumping at her basically and wanting her to adjust quickly when things like that nature take time. Given, I understand it. You're right, but both things can be right as well. This family basically hadn't known anything about her for 25 years. And they are now sat with this new family member. The biological father had 2 younger daughters. He had remarried, not to the same woman that was Freddie's mother. It was a whole thing. And that happened within the first 2 years. And the 5-year time jump comes. She's matured a little bit more. I would figure at this point she's 32, right? And she now has a relationship with a French guy. And she's been back and forth between France and Korea within this 5-year span. She ends up in a different line of work, dealing with weapons and stuff like that, due to a meeting she had with some random French dude that she met on a dating app, which she was just having sex with, and then eventually became a business partner. And then that French dude wasn't the guy that she was having a relationship with in the 5-year time jump. It was a random French guy that she found in France that she was having a relationship with. It was this whole thing. And I jumped a bit because in that other 2-year time jump, she was like in the Korean underworld, and no. Let me not say underworld, because that's not the way. I'm saying underworld like, like mafia style and shit like that or whatever. Because like it wasn't like that at all. She was like these underground raves and parties and stuff like that or whatever the case is. She had what seemed to be a Korean boyfriend at the time. But he was he was with whatever. to use a term, because she was so sexually fluid and she was allowed to go off and do whatever she wanted to do. He could do the same thing. And like, she had this friend from work and she was a female, and they were sitting down one time and she started making out with dude, and it just made it was made to seem like this dude, this Korean guy who seemed to be a tattoo artist or whatever the case is, who was in the same party underground rave type world that she was in, kissing her friend from work. And then she gets upset. And it's like, how you get upset? It was like, you out here having sex with some random French dude who's a weapons dealer. Like, it's not okay for him. Like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? That's the part of the movie that was sort of annoying, right? And people would say, oh, well, you know, she's young, she's still trying to find herself and finding her identity, and, you know, she's out here just experimenting, right? And I'm like, I guess so. In my head, you know, just trying to make sense of it all, right? And it's like, you're sexually fluid, you like both guys and girls and stuff like that or whatever, but it's like, well, you can do your thing, but then the people that you're messing with can't do their thing? Like, how fair is that? Right? So it's like there was a deep-seated sense of selfishness within her in that particular vein. Throughout all this time, she's still looking for the biological mother. And the mother never responds within the first 7 years of the 2 time jumps. And within this first 7 years, like I said, mistreatment of men. Eventually, her relationship with her biological father becomes better. You still see her having a relationship with her with her adoptive mother. During one of the scenes, she told her mother to send her love and regards to her father, her adoptive father, but he never became an integral part of the movie. But it seemed to be that was the best relationship she had with a male, or maybe not. Being that he wasn't depicted in the movie, it could be inferred that that's where she has this disconnect with men in her life. I don't know. You leave it up to you to interpret, I guess. But that was my whole thing with the film. Like, everything to me, due to whatever kind of sensibilities you might be attached to, is completely interpretive. And yes, no doubt, all art is subjective. But it just left more questions than answers, really. Like, the only answers we got in this movie were, yes, she found her biological father within the first half an hour of the movie. And then within the last 15 minutes of the movie, her biological mother eventually responds to one of these telegrams from the adoption service that did the procedures and everything with her adoption with the French family. The biological mother shows up, meets her, and they only meet the one time in a Hammond, which is the name of the adoption agency. In a Hammond building, the mother embraces her. Freddie's crying the entire time. The mother gives her an email address. A year later, Freddie decides, after meeting her mother, there's another year time jump, which is where the 8 years in total come into play. She's frolicking in some grasslands there, ends up at hotel/Airbnb type place, decides to email her mother at the email address that her mother had passed her on a piece of paper, and the email address comes back with the old mailer demon email, which rejected and sent her back the email that she sent out. Basically, that the email address that her mother had, the biological mother, had written down was not a real email address. The mother, from beginning to end, wanted nothing to do with Freddie or knowing her. She just met her because I feel she was nagged all those years. She came down to it and she was like, okay, I'll do this one time. But I won't keep a relationship with this girl so that she can have her closure and walk away. And at the end of the day, there was another disconnect there. The mother did not want to keep that relationship. the biological one, that is. And for me, it's like we drag this on for 8 years just so that we can get the finality of she gets one chance with her mom. Nice embrace. It's over. Let me go back to my life, kid. I want nothing to do with you. While the father regretted this his whole entire life, wanted a relationship with her, whatever the case is, and she kept on rejecting the biological father. Eventually, she didn't. She changed course and was a little bit more accepting, a little bit more understanding, and started to build a relationship with the biological father and the extended family there. And it showed growth, right? So throughout these time jumps, you can see her mature and show growth. But yet, like, those scenes, like the underground party scene for her, birthday scenes of hers, like, they dragged so much that I was taken out of the movie a lot of the time. Like, there was one scene where she was just dancing, and it's like, okay, yeah, we already kind of figured that she's a free spirit. She likes to have fun, da-da-da. I was like, you didn't have to create a dance scene around her to just get that, or to make it more of a point. Like, we got that to begin with, you know, and that's the thing about the movie. That's why I say it was not a bad movie. It's not a great movie, and it's not even a mid movie. It's like, I understood the story from its linear path. I understood the branches, right? Her relationships with men, her relationships with women, her growth as a person, her trying to find herself. In a way, a coming of age story. And then you have the part about her trying to connect with her origins. Essentially, eventually she moved to Korea out of France, learned how to speak the Korean language a little bit, because she didn't understand it at all. She grew up speaking French, and she actually knew English. So a lot of it wasn't necessarily disjointed. It all made sense, but a lot of, like, the randomness of her and some of these extended, the only thing I can say about it is, like, what's the term that's used in the arts? I'm forgetting right now, but it was just more of a visual explanation of her traits, characteristics, personality that were reiterated through these long cutscenes of her doing random shit that she enjoyed doing. And it's like, but we got this already. What are these scenes proving necessarily? The one in the underground club for her birthday, and her doing drugs and drinking, and I was like, yeah, we get it. She's a free spirit. She's gonna try anything once. Okay, fantastic. It might be a pet peeve to me because I hate that kind of the music that was being played in that underground club. There was other, like, classic Korean pop music being played, which I love the sound of. But, like, that underground, I guess, like, rave kind of techno or deep house kind of music, it just wasn't my flavor. It's not my flavor now. But at the end of the day, it's like, it was super loud, and it was meant to create an environment of confusion and fogginess in a sense or whatever. So I got that. But it's like, why are we still going through this? We got this. Like, it was just, I still can't find the word, but at the end of the day, there was 3 scenes like that in the movie. The first dance scene in that little restaurant / club thing that they had in the first 2-year jump, and then the 5-year, before the 2-year jump, restaurant dance cutscene. Then the 2-year jump, Korean underground, party world, or whatever the case is. had that particular scene with all that loud ass music. Yet again, another birthday interpretation for her. And then the 5-year jump, it just had her in this space where she was no nonsense. And there was this one line that completely took me out of the freaking movie when when it was her and her French boyfriend at the time. They were in a cab, and at that point in time, she had re-engaged relations with her biological father, and the biological father had played some music for her in which he started to play the piano, and he played the piece from his phone or whatever, and they had that in common because she had started to play the piano. And when they end up in the scene in this cab, she goes off on the French dude. Not off in the sense where like she's yelling at something or whatever the case is, but she threatens him, telling him that she can wipe him off the face of the planet with the snap of a finger. And I thought it was super random that she made that comment to him or said that to him yet again, reiterating the fact that she had bad relationships with men and the mistreatment of men. And to me, it's like, I guess you can attribute it to the fact that she might have thought that the dude knew that the father, the biological father, had similar likes or whatever, like, because she was still on the fence about the biological dad at this point. And I was like, that's mad unnecessary. A lot of what she did, regardless of the fact that people could say it's like, you know, people's lives are mundane, people aren't going to do, you know, boring shit, like she's just experimenting, this, that, and the third. And I was like, I just found a lot of what she did in a lot of these scenes that were extended, they're just very unnecessary. And it's like, oh, you know, but it takes people longer to find themselves and understand who they are as people and a person and whatever they can attach to. Yeah, but you waste so much fucking time. And I'm sorry, folks. It might sound confusing and all over the place in a sense, right? And to me, that's a human experience, right? Which is why I like the movie. Right? It's like you experience all these different things. You learn lessons. You grow. You evolve. You mature in life. It just made sense to me in that sense. But some of the stuff that she said and did, it's like she could have still learned the lessons and got the point without all the fucking nonsense. And then the mistreatment of the men, like, okay. I guess I get it. But it's like she yearned for this relationship with her mother, the biological mother, because she had a good relationship with her adoptive mother as well, from what it seemed like when she communicated with her. So she had decent relationships with women. But like, men were just pawns. And she threw them away. And then by the end of the movie, it seemed like like I said, she turned a new leaf, she grew, she evolved, and she started to understand and accept more, right? But a lot of it was just like, yeah, girl, you just spent 8 years of your life trying to figure shit out, and you did a whole lot of unnecessary bullshit that you never learned from. And it's like, okay, so by the end of it, she's 33. It's 2021. And she's back in Korea full time. Because now she's more accepting of the situation. After the fact that she learned that her biological mother was the one who didn't want anything to do with her. And she didn't get that the first 7 years when the lady never answered one of those telegrams from the Hammond agency. Like, come on, girl. That to me is annoying. 7 years? She never responded for 7 years? And then after she freaking ditched you the second time, that's when you got it? Okay. I'll say it's fair. Because everybody learns differently, right? But it's like, was the mistreatment of the men in your life really that necessary? Because for folks who don't understand, it's like, but John, it's two different things. And it's like, I've always told folks that in life, everything correlates. It's that whole 6 degrees of separation thing. In life, whatever you do stems from something that you have done before and or experienced before. So when I say the mistreatment of men, and then she has better relationships with women, where does that start from? It's like, well, what is her belief? Right? Did she have a good relationship with her adoptive father? They show a complete disconnect. They don't even have him on screen. But yet she tells her adoptive mother to send her or send him her love. So it seems that she had a good relationship with her adoptive father. She was raised in a well enough environment and by a good family. But I guess she believed that it was on her biological father that she was put up for adoption. But we all come to find out that it was the biological mom who didn't want anything to do with her. So it's like that disconnect she had, or that hatred or that angst she had against her biological father, should have been had against the biological mother. So then she took it out on other men throughout her lifetime. At least the non-parental types. It just didn't sit well with me, folks. I don't know why. It just didn't sit well. Like I said, I thought that the story was well put together. It was shot very well. I like the way that the cinematographer had the close-ups in the movie and things of that nature, really letting us bask in like the expressions of the characters in the movie. I thought that was very, very well done. The score, I found it to be very flowy. Like, it made you flow along with the story very well. The score helped the movie along very, very well. The soundtrack, for the most part, like I said, the trance rave type deep house music, not my thing. But like the poppy Korean stuff, and even for some of the I think some other French music in there was cool. But like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. Like I said, folks, do I recommend this film? It's not for everybody. It's not going to be. And the reason as to why I say this is because the Rotten Tomatoes score shows this, right? So I went to Rotten Tomatoes to see how many people have actually criticized or said anything about the film. So on the critics side, there's only 76 reviews from critics. And it has a 97% fresh rating from critics. But with less or fewer than 50 ratings from audiences, 54% of the audience liked the movie. And this is a movie that's being distributed by Sony Pictures Classics, which usually puts out outstanding films. You know, like I said, it's not for everybody, folks. It's a real mind fuck, in a sense. Because there's so many layers to the protagonist / antagonist of the movie, to the surrounding parts, the auxiliary characters in the movie as well. People just trying to help her along in her journey, and she just kind of uses them, which I thought was kind of So, you know, and I understand there's people like that in the world, and to me, from a bias standpoint, it's a turnoff. But I find it intriguing because it's like, okay, how do people like this really operate, right? Which is why I went to go see the movie in the first place. But I'll leave it there with y'all. Return to Seoul. Quite the movie. If you want to go into a deep dive character study of how, because there's many different sides, right? Of how the other side lives, right? I think this is one of those movies that really shows you that, right? Because it comes from a female perspective, but then from a cultural perspective, she was raised French and has Korean origins. So you have all these different sensibilities in the film. So I feel like if you're into that sort of thing and don't mind the layered approach to the storytelling and the characters themselves, this is a movie for you. But if you feel like movies like these might be too difficult for you to understand and or just grasp from a storytelling perspective, then just leave it be. But anyways, folks, I appreciate y'all for listening. Thank you as always. And I'll be back again with another movie review to end off my weekend. Thank you as always. Stay safe. Take care of one another. And stay healthy, yeah? Alright, folks. I'm about this for now. I'll check you later.